Christopher, thank you for your great presentation here, and thank you being here in the North European Cybersecurity event. And first question I would like to ask that how you see Europe in this cybersecurity map in the world. We talk about so much in Russians, and we talk about so much and what they are doing in the different fields. We talk about the Chinese. We talk about very strong discussion about how the Americans are taking these kind of things. And here in Europe, we are rather silent. So,
I've seen certainly there's a lot of discussion in the U.S., but I've seen a lot of activity in Europe too. When I was in the government, we had lots of dialogues with Europe, including what we call the Nordic-Baltic countries, which included Finland and all the other Nordic-Baltic countries. And we were taking it seriously, and they were beginning to really focus on it as a major policy issue. Now, I think one of the other things we saw just last week when we had this attribution of Russia being responsible for the some of the hacking around the chemical weapons agency. It was again interesting because a lot of the European countries joined that, and you also had a statement coming out of the EU itself saying how important that was. So I do think there's activity in Europe. Obviously, just like in the U.S., I think it can be stepped up even further, but I think there's been some good activity. There needs to be more awareness, just like there is in the U.S. I think you need to get more the non-cyber people understanding this issue.
Do you have some suggestions what the European Union should do in overall in this cyber issues? We are just now more or less focusing on regulating, have a GDPR or e-privacy act, these kind of things. Do you think that this is sufficient, or is it the right way what the Europe is doing?
I think the bigger thing that Europe did that I thought was really good was the Network Information Security Directive, and also asking every member state to make sure that they joined this Budapest Convention, that they had national strategies in place, they had certs in place, really making it level across the board. So they have been, I think, paying some attention to it. GDPR, I think, is a very difficult, complex thing. On the positive side, I think it does create an incentive for cybersecurity, because if you breach that data, there's penalties for it. So that's the positive thing about it. But it can't just be a regulatory approach. You really have to take this policy approach. And one of the things the European Union did recently, and the diplomatic side, was they created a diplomatic toolkit to go after cyber. And that's what was used in this event last week, for instance. And so that includes sanctions, that includes diplomatic actions, joint actions among countries. I think they need to focus even more on that. I think that's something that's going to be very important going forward, because, look, the fact is Europe is as much a victim as the U.S. of all these actors, whether they be state actors or criminal actors.
So the last, what do you think about Finland in the cybersecurity map? You are here in Finland and you're seeing this our event, and we think that in the European level, at least, Finland has been very strong producing cybersecurity solutions, and there have been a lot of acquisitions made out of the Finnish companies in all around the world. So how you see Finland on that map?
I've always been very impressed with Finland. I started dealing with Finland back when I was a prosecutor going after this major hacker, Kevin Mitnick, where one of his victims was Nokia. And so we were dealing with Finnish law enforcement. We're very sophisticated and very good at the time. Finland had one of the strongest early CERTs, computer emergency response teams. Finland has a good strategy and focus on this. And Finland was one of the early countries that followed the lead when I was the first cyber diplomat in the world. Finland created their own cyber diplomat, their own cyber ambassador. So I think Finland is well placed to really have a leadership role in this. They have the technical capability. They're focusing on it as a policy. I think that's great. And I think the more they can do that, the better.
Thanks. Nice to hear that. What do you think about this event where we are now?
It's my first time at this event. I think it's great. A lot of good people here, a lot of different folks, some colleagues and friends I've seen in other places, which is good. I think it's important to bring not just the cyber people together, but other parts of the business community together. I think too often the cyber people just talk to each other. And so you need to really spread it out and get some of the C-suite people, the government people who don't do this every day. I think events like this are very helpful to raise that awareness. And I'm very happy to be a part of this, and I'm very happy you invited me to come.
Thank you very much, Christopher. Hope to see you in the future also, this type of events.
I hope to be back. Thanks.